Hey everyone. So, I wanted to talk about one of my favorite stories. It's based off of a psychology experiment um, that is written about in a book called, I believe, Peak by Anders Ericsson, and we're going to talk about deliberate practice and learning. So, one of the most important things when it comes to learning is spending a short period of time, highly focused on a task that is at the boundary of your skill level. So those are, I guess that's three things that are really kind of wrapped up into there. But let's focus on each one of those things individually. One, we need the task to be difficult, but not too difficult, at the boundary of your ability. So what you want to do is you want to get up right up to where it's like, something is just the right amount of hard. And again, intuitively, this makes sense. If you're just reviewing very, very easy stuff, you're not going to get better, right? And if you're doing very, very hard stuff, it's going to take you too long to do it. You're not really going to get the practice at it, and you're going to fail a lot of times, which also can be discouraging. But we'll talk about that mindset, the growth versus fixed mindset, and accepting failure later. So it has to be at the barrier of your ability. Two, it's much more important to do a short, focused period of time than it is to a long, diffuse period of time. Short focus time is the most important part of doing this type of practice. And the third thing, what were we talking about? The third thing? Focused, short, boundary of your skill level. My goodness, I've forgotten. This is why I need scripts. Okay, so let me describe the experiment to you. Here's the experiment. This guy comes in, we're gonna call him Joe. So Joe's in, he comes to this office, and every single day he does this, every single week he comes to the office for 1 hour, the psychology office, to do this experiment. And this experiment is basically memorizing a random string of numbers. It's incredibly boring, but also really hard. If someone's like, yo, memorize 2 and repeat it back to me a minute later, you'd be like 2, not a problem. But if someone gave you a 20-digit number and said, what is it? It's gonna be very, very difficult 2 minutes later even to remember the whole thing. 1 minute later even. So, a fun fact about human memory is that our working memory is about 7 items plus or minus 2. So most people can remember between 5 and 9 items in general. So if I give you a grocery list of 5 things, you can probably remember it. If I give you 9, you probably won't be able to remember it. But 7 is about the average. And that's like not a lot of things. So this guy gets a sheet of paper and it's got 5 numbers on it. He has X amount of time to memorize it. Then he puts it away and then he's tested on it a little bit later. And let's say he can do it, great. Then the next test he has is 6 numbers or 7 numbers. I think it was 6 numbers, right? And if he can memorize that, he goes up to 7, etc. And so this person came in and did this for an hour on multiple numbers, every week. And he got, I think up to like 7 or 9 or something like that, but kind of stuck there for a while because it's hard to remember all these things. And he did this type of thing for like a year or something like that, like a year plus. And so this person comes in, he remembers some numbers, maybe he goes up to 10, but then if he gets it wrong, he goes back down to 9, back down to 8 maybe. I think it's down to 9. If he gets it right, he goes up to 10, something like that, right? And so he keeps doing this thing and he hits this plateau and he gets stuck there for a while. And that's also one of the keys here. It has to be a little bit frustrating. It has to be a little bit annoying, painful slightly to get it wrong. You need to have a feedback loop that makes you kind of want to keep doing it. And basically our minds come up with ways to stop the pain. They come up with techniques to be able to do better on this and to continue succeeding. So this person's there and he does this thing for months, he gets to 10, 12, 15, whatever, gets stuck there, plateaus again at 25, whatever. And by the end of this year or whatever, he's able to remember a string 85 digits or something like that, something wild, and it was really only 1 hour a week. That's 50 hours. That's not a lot of time to be able to remember a random string of 100 digits, possibly for the rest of your life, And they talked to him about, what he was doing and how it was going, and essentially over time, he started creating mnemonics for doing this. He started creating visualizations and trees and structures and just arbitrary abstractions to compress this data into smaller and smaller things. Chunking and symbolism, etc., whatever. So it's kind of impressive. It's kind of cool, but this idea works with everything. Now, here's an addendum to this experiment. After he did this, he actually signed his roommate up for this experiment. So then his roommate came in and started doing the experiment. And it was relatively similar, but the only difference was that he was able to get coaching from the first subject. And so he had 1 hour focused practice, spaced out over time, with his maximum level of difficulty and a reward/cost function for getting it right or wrong. And he had expert coaching. Expert coaching is also fundamentally important to this, and that's like really the formula for learning anything. This is the formula. Short period of time, intense, hard focus, boundary of your ability, expert coaching. These 4 things together are the baseline for any type of learning. So that's all, that's great, and that's the story. You can check out my other videos about repetition. That's quantity versus quality. Short thing is do it as often as you can up to a certain point, and then try to increase that quality and then go back to improving quantity. We've talked about the gap mentioned by Ira Glass, which is the difference between where you are skill level wise and where your taste is, and how it takes a long time to be able to make something that you're actually proud of that is able to kind of bridge that gap between what you want it to be and what it is. We've talked about the importance of consistency, make sure that you have a regular scheduled practice for this every single day. We've talked about free recall, which is an important way of being able to remember and retain these things, which is going back and just thinking about this task or skill and kind of reliving or revisualizing it. We've talked about spaced repetition. It's important to have that over time. Make sure that, the task or skill that you're learning kind of spikes. I guess we can also talk about interleaving. We've talked about free recall, we'll talk about interleaving, and periodicity. Okay, so we're gonna add these 2 other ideas onto this video because, no, we'll do another video. Okay, next time we're gonna talk about periodicity and interleaving.